This is Straight to the Source, your destination for food, views and big ideas. Brought to you by two of the best in the business, Tawnya, Bahr and Lucy Allon. Join them to discover some of Australia's most dynamic food, hospitality and agribusiness leaders.
Hello and welcome to Food, Views and Big Ideas. I'm Tawnya Bahr.
And I'm Lucy Allon, and this is the podcast from us here at Straight to the Source.
In this podcast, we will be introducing you to the people who are driving our food and hospitality industry forward. Whether it be on the land, in the water, in the kitchen, or from the boardroom.
Each of our guests are playing a significant role in the evolution of Australia's food identity and culture, and we want you to know who they are, their views and their big ideas.
Today on Straight to the Source, we're talking with respected hospitality leader Belinda Clarke. Most people will be familiar with Belinda through her role as CEO of the Restaurant and Catering Industry Association. Now, we actually sat down with Belinda last week for an interview, but things move very quickly in this world. So welcome back, Belinda. Can you please give our listeners your news?
Well, good morning. It's been a big week. It's been a hard week. But what I would like to share, and it's actually the first time that I've said it out loud, is that I have actually tendered my resignation with the association, and I'll be finishing up in the next few weeks. Anyone who knows me would know that this would be a very hard decision that I've had to make. I took on the role 6 months ago, and I think that after 6 months, I have to make decisions, and I've had to make a really tough one. My heart bleeds hospitality, and I love my members, I love my partners, I love my team, and I'm very proud of what I've done. However, I've had to make a decision, and so I will be finishing up with the association. But I'm sure I will not be leaving hospitality. I will just be doing something different. So stay tuned.
We're not going to let you go. Thank you, Belinda. Okay, now here's our somewhat out of date but still incredibly relevant interview from last week. So, welcome, Belinda Clarke.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Well, being a leader that you are, that doesn't happen overnight. And I would love to hear your story on how this came to be. I mean, you are one of the most recognizable female industry leaders in Australia, hands down. You're in this unique position, and I'd love to know how it came to be.
Wow, that's a big question. I think from a very young age, I knew that I loved hospitality. I wanted to get into architecture and started that process and was like, no, I need to be in front of people. And I was working as a kitchen hand in a pizza shop. And eventually they gave the trust to me to be able to take the food to the customers on a night where they had no staff. And they said, all right, get her off the dishes. Let her take some food out to the table. And then I stayed on the floor and, I was getting the real job of an architect and behind the scenes, loving my Friday night, Saturday night shifts in the pizza restaurant. And kind of dropped that and said, well, what do I need to do to be a professional in this industry? So I found the best restaurant I could at that time in the Hunter Valley, where I'm from, and that was Robert Molinez's restaurant, Robert's, and applied for a job. And he gave me an apprenticeship on the floor to be able to learn how to be a server.
So how old were you at this time?
I would have been 18, nearly 19. So I spent a few years there with Robert, and back in the day at Robert's, it was hardcore. It was serious business. Back then you were paying $45. Now we're talking 25 years ago. And, that was a lot of money for a main meal, $45, $50. And so there was an expectation there of service. And he wanted to be a leader in the Hunter Valley, and I was proud to work for the best restaurant. And when I was finished up with Robert, and I'm not going to lie, I think he made me cry every day that I worked there, taught me my lessons in the afternoon and what I could have done better. And I said, okay, all right, every day I'd come back. And then I said, I'm going to leave now, Robert, and I'm going to go over to work in the best restaurant in the world now. And at that time it was Gordon Ramsay's. And he said, okay, go. I think you're ready, go. So I booked a ticket for the following week and went over to London, literally got off the plane with my big suitcase, caught the tube, went straight to his restaurant in Chelsea. It was about 3 PM, but knocked on the door and asked to speak to Gordon. And the maitre d' went and got Gordon. He did his usual, arm up on a tea towel over his shoulder, arm up on the edge of the door frame.
Hang on. Did you know him, or did you just rock up and this was a cold call?
No, total cold call. I wanted to work in the best restaurant. I had no idea if he was going to say yes, but that's what I needed to do.
Wow.
So he said, he was a bit taken back, of course. Literally still had my suitcase with me. And he said, if you are back here in the morning at 8:00 with a pair of court shoes and a navy suit, I'll give you a job. And I was like, oh, God, okay. So I head back into London on the tube, finding a shop, paid way too much money for a suit and court shoes, was back there in the morning, 8:00. And he said, okay, you've got yourself a job. And it was amazing. I had no idea how much I was going to get paid. They pay not very much, and it's paid monthly in arrears. It was tough, but I loved it.
And what did you love about it? What was your drive then?
It was about the structure. It was about the professionalism. It was about my job was a small job. My job was just the hostess. So all I had to do in a Michelin star restaurant was open the door, close the door, take them to the table, still sparkling water, and look after the bills. That was it. But the amount of emphasis on each of those jobs in a Michelin star restaurant, each of the services that we would hold, if your socks was one was black and one was grey, you'd go home. The standard was so high. Then you're part of something. You're part of something very special, very respected. And I loved it. It motivated me. And of course, at some time you have to come home, and, I came home. So then again, it was, what do I do now? I need to be the best again. So, I went to Sydney and wanted to continue working in the best, and got some great jobs. And, some of the great jobs I had was managing the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, and, managing how that would work with the Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race and the most elite weddings in the eastern suburbs, and functions and events there. And then I was offered to manage the GM of Kingsley's Woolloomooloo down in Woolloomooloo. And that was an experience. That restaurant back then was 99% men, 1% woman. And it was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of deals that were done on the wharf, and income this female GM. And I was like, how am I going to get these guys over the line? I don't do drugs. I don't do this. So I was like, right. I said to Kingsley, I'm going to give away a ton of champagne. So I learned all of their names, their wives' names, children's names, their business names, where they like to sit, what they like to eat, and delivered on every single experience to earn their respect, and said, no, we're not doing that in the bathroom. No, this is not happening. No, we're here and we're going to have a great experience. And we turned that restaurant around to be 50-50. So women and men. And it was a place that was respected. I come here now to do my deals, to be able to, she's going to know my name. I'm going to go down to Otto's or Manta and get a lobster and walk it up the wharf if that's what you want today. It was, what do you need? How do I deliver? And let me look after you. Let me serve you and let you give you the experience. And they're the things that drives me, being able to take what we do, take it seriously and deliver. And then, of course, bringing Jamie's Italian to Australia and opening up all of the restaurants here was incredible. Working in the kitchen with Gennaro and Jamie was inspiring. Again, that's another level of the quality of the food and the produce and the experience that you must deliver, and setting those standards. I love those parameters. And I guess I've had my own business. I've renovated a pub. I've been a licensee and part of that community. And when you're part of a pub and you're part of a community, you cannot drop an orange in the supermarket. Everyone knows you. You can't drop an orange and kick it under the side. Everybody looks at you as part of the furniture of that community. And that taught me a lot. That taught me how important it is when you go back to those basic elements of hospitality and respect and community, because that's incredibly important when we come to what we do on a day-to-day basis. And I'm very fortunate to be brought into the association as a COO. And I probably didn't even know what that meant at the time. But again, it was about going back to basics, doing a tour of the country, of going into people's restaurants, their cafes, their businesses, understanding what your problems are, what is happening, how can we help, understanding what the core issues were. And this is way before COVID. And of course, we all knew that hospitality as an industry was in a pretty bad way before COVID, let alone then when COVID hit.
You know, you just mentioned COO, and we're talking about restaurant and catering. We will get to that in a moment. But I didn't know this about you. I didn't know you started out in pizza restaurants and then regional restaurants, and then flew overseas and Michelin star. I mean, and then back and then franchises and pubs. And, you know, that's a very diverse range of experience that you've had. And in addition to that, on the flip side, you were married to a chef.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think when you work in hospitality, you become a family within where you're working. And I was very blessed to be able to find a great man who is the father to my children. And he was very driven. You know, he was the executive chef of key restaurants. You know, he was the same. He said, we're going to go to Sydney. We're going to go hard or go home. I'm going to work with Peter Gilmore. And I was like, right, yeah, let's do this. We wanted to understand how we can be part of hospitality, how we can be part of this industry, because we loved it. And, you know, my children now, God forbid, I don't know what they're going to end up doing, but at this point, they appreciate what we do and how important that is, and how much to respect food and how much of an important part it is for us with what we do together in hospitality, and how we work together as a family to support each other in this industry, because it's a big, hard industry. It's not easy. No,
but you don't get to where you are by having everything be easy either, do you?
No, and that's the balance, I think, of being able to know what you need to do, know there's an end goal. Nothing I've ever decided to do was for a short-term solution. Everything was a planned long-term solution, surrounding myself with hiring always the best people I can find, people that inspire me, people who I need to lean into, people who have got skills that I may not have to be able to make what we do amazing. You know, it's really important.
I know you're a mentor to many, but do you have a mentor?
No, I actually don't have a mentor. And anyone who wants to put up their hand, I'd love to. I'd love to have one. But I think that on the flip side, I'm very blessed to have a lot of people that I can talk to. You know, I think that there's a lot of people out there. We're never going to succeed if it's all about self. It's never going to work. We're at a time now where we have to work together, and particularly for our industry, we all need to be successful for this to work. We all need to support each other for this to work. So I feel very blessed that I know there's a lot of people that feel the same way. So I draw down on them for advice, or for someone just to, you know, chat to see, you know, am I on the right page with this, or what do you think, or what are you doing with this? And I think that's really special to be able to do that. So not one person, but I'm probably very lucky to have lots of people who I can reach out to at different times for different support and advice.
You touched on restaurant and catering earlier. So can we talk about that and what restaurant and catering does for the industry and your role within that?
So my current role is the CEO of the association, but I did join the association a few years ago as the COO. And from day one, I felt incredibly honoured and blessed to have a role that is able to make a difference. And initially, I didn't realise what the capabilities and possibilities were. And now it is just such a gift to be able to represent so many businesses on a day-to-day basis, and to be able to, for them to see that I get it, that I understand, And I will do whatever I can in my power to make sure that message gets heard, to be supported, to find a gap, to understand what they need. And then to see things actually happen, is the other flip side when you complain or lobby, when you're banging on doors, when you're advocating, is a side that I never realized how powerful it can be. And I think it's actually a real blessing that I've never come from a political background, because now when I speak to politicians, I'm not coming with any ulterior motive. They know it's a very genuine, authentic message, and that here is a name of a business. Here is what needs to happen. And if you do this, it's going to mean this. And if you don't do this, it's going to mean this, and make it relatable. And that's what is getting traction. That's what is respected. I am very authentic and genuine when it comes to our industry, and I have nothing to lose if I do things the right way and I make sure that I use this position for the greater good to be able to benefit everybody in our industry. And I'm now working with other alliances in food service in general to be able to bring people together, to be able to make an impact, because it's not going to be one person, one association that changes the world. We have to work together to be able to make a difference and make a change.
Well, how do you balance it all then? I mean, this is a big job. It's a big role. You have an enormous responsibility in many aspects of your life. So I think, I don't want to pull the female card, but as a woman juggling motherhood, work, life balance, what are the tools that you use to keep it all in check?
Well, sometimes I get it wrong. I'm going to say that, some days you think, wow, not getting Mother of the Year this year, it's not going to happen. But I think it's about, for me, I've got teenage daughters, so it is about a balance, but it's also about taking time out and making sure that there's time that you are on the phone. And I spend a lot of my time on the phone. Like even this morning, I had text messages coming through from venues in Melbourne of something that's been released in the AFR today that, was blowing up from 6:30. And it's about going, okay, communicating to them, this is what's going on, this is what it means and why I need to do this. But then other times, like last night, I got home late, but I put the phone away, watched a movie with my kids, had some popcorn, and had those moments. But then there's other times when I need to have a moment for me. I need to be able to block everybody out. And so for me, I feel that there isn't much downtime, but the downtime that I can get and make sure I don't feel guilty about it. I think we all need to be focused on not feeling guilty for taking time for yourself, is going to the gym, is spin, is going out to my garden and appreciating, clipping my tomato plants and my succulents and, taking time in the sun and finding the time that I need to be able to have some time, because you do need to have a balance, or you can let it get out of control. And as much as I am here for my members and here for our industry, I also have a beautiful family. And so I need to make time for them. And yes, as I said, sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes there's, 2 weeks and they barely see me at all. But I think communicating to them and letting them know there's a reason for it. And I think they're pretty proud of Mummy.
I bet they are too. Clearly you've got such, you're driven, you've got high standards. And I would imagine having them observe all of the achievements that you've had and the way that you operate is a great thing. From a role model point of view. And, the fact that you mentioned you don't always get it right. I don't know anybody that gets it right. It is a juggling act. And sometimes you do need that sense checker, even if it's an internal bit within you going, hang on, let's dial it back. Let's just see how we can just recalibrate.
Yeah, it's exactly that. My youngest daughter she's my barometer, and I kind of go back when I think I might be, taking on too much. I'll just come back, and it's okay to say no sometimes. I think we also forget that as business owners, as busy people. Sometimes it's you got to say no, and I kind of put it always through the barometer of my youngest. And if I go, no, you've crossed the line, Belle. All right, got to back away from this one. And I think we all need to have those resets.
So in terms of, you are the CEO of Restaurant and Catering. Have you hit the glass ceiling?
So I think that they're probably not a terminology that I've ever used. I've been very fortunate and blessed in my entire career. And I think I've made decisions always for the right reasons. And I think that, yes, there comes a time where you need to have balance, and I need to sometimes pull those in. But I've got so much to give, and there's so much more to come. And I'm incredibly excited about that. And there's no lid for me. And I'm in a very fortunate position, and I'm never going to forget that.
Oh, Belle, it's wonderful that we're able to have this chat, and I know your time is very precious, and so we thank you very much for spending the time with us this morning. If you could think of someone that you admire or that you find incredibly interesting that we should invite onto the Straight to the Source podcast, does anybody come to mind?
Oh, there's probably a ton of people that I think could be inspiring to listen to. And I think that there are people who are doing amazing things in general. And I think that we also forget sometimes, I don't know what it is, but it's almost that in our industry, it's almost shameful to be successful. It's almost this, but I hate to say it, but it's almost like, they've gone on a holiday overseas to Europe. Whoa, look at them,
It's at the top.
Oh, how lucky. Yeah, lucky them, And I think that there's something wrong if we're not successful. We have to make sure there's no point in putting yourselves through what you do every day for our suppliers, for our restaurants, for our cafes, our caterers, everybody in this food chain. We have to do it, and it's okay to make money. And please don't forget that. And I think there's a lot of people out there doing great things who are very successful, and we should be learning from them and being inspired by them, because this is what's going to take our industry forward if we all work together and we're all successful.
I love it. I'm enjoying this conversation so much. And
oh, really?
100%. And I've learned so much about you. I had no idea. And I think that, understanding the person, because I think often you're either referred to as your children's mother or your husband's wife, or, or somebody's, the CEO or your company name or what have you. And you can lose your own identity in this crazy world. And learning more about you as a person and what drives you and your pathway to where you are today is so interesting, and it is really inspiring.
I don't know. I don't think about it. I don't think it's much, but I just know that I will always be in this industry. I know I'll always be working in hospitality because it brings me back every time, and it inspires me, and I love it, and it motivates me.
If there was one bit of advice you would give a young person setting out, looking at the hospitality industry and all that it is and all its glory, what bit of advice would you give this person?
To be successful in any industry, you need to work hard. You need to make it your passion, and you need to put yourself into it, lean into it, learn as much as you can. So if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be a doctor, whatever it is. But in our industry, it's no different. You need to work hard. You need to study. You need to make sure you give it the attention it deserves, because this is a career opportunity. And there are very successful people that work in our industry. And it is so important to remember that if you work hard, you get rewarded. And that definitely is the same thing in our industry.
Well, Belle Clarke, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I love your work personally and professionally. We have a lot of respect for you, so thank you.
Oh, I feel very honored to be on your podcast, and thank you so much for giving me the time as well.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We really hope you enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed the conversation. You'll find links to anything mentioned in today's chat in the show notes. We have some more extraordinary guests lined up, and we would love you to join us again. So please make sure you're following us on your favourite podcast app so you don't miss future episodes. We'd also love to hear any of your feedback, good or bad, or perhaps you've got a guest you'd love to hear from. You can let us know. And the best way to stay up to date with what we're doing, who we're talking to, and where you'll find us around the country is to become part of the Straight to the Source community at straighttothesource.com.au/community. Until next time.